ABS Media Demo.
Hello and welcome to ibbusinessandmanagement.com. I'm Mr. Burton, site author of ibbusinessandmanagement.com. Delighted to have you with me again today. Today we start our fifth topic, that is operations management in the IB Diploma Business and Management course. The fifth topic, operations management, we start that off with 5.1 production methods. Okay, 5.1 production methods. A few key things to learn, but not a huge topic. Stay with me, take some notes. I hope you learned something today. Operations management is all about producing the right goods and services at the right quality level in a cost-effective and timely manner. Essentially, operations management, production, it's all about turning factor inputs. Do you remember what factor inputs are? We have the four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. And to many marketing and production managers, they are often referred to as the 5 M's. That is materials, manpower, machines, money, and management. So we're turning these factor inputs into a business into outputs. So the final products the goods and services that the business is selling, and hopefully at the minimal cost. So factors of production, we take our land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Here is where topic 5 comes in, the production. We're adding value, we're combining these factors of production, adding some value, and producing a final product for the market. Production is this middle step. Okay, we have different production methods that are available. Different production methods that are available. There are 4 main methods of production. We're going to look at each of these in turn, and for you high-level folk out there, there's another one that you'll need to come to terms with as well. So, different production methods. What type of production methods do firms have available to them to turn their factor inputs into their final goods and services ready for market? The first of these being job production. Right, you might want to get your pen and paper handy here. You'll need to take some notes. Job production is normally used for the production of single one-off products. These products may be small or large and are often unique. Good examples of job production would be specially designed wedding ring, or made-to-measure suits, or a massive hydroelectric power dam, for example. In order to be called job production, now this is a key point, in order to be called job production, each individual product has to be completed before the next product is started. Each individual product has to be completed before the next product is started. At any one time, there is only one product being made. New, small firms often use labor-intensive job production before they get the chance to expand and purchase advanced equipment. Job production enables specialized products to be produced and tends to be motivating for workers because they produce the whole product and can take pride in it. But this production method tends to result in high unit costs, often takes a long time to complete, and is usually quite labor intensive. The labor force also needs to be highly skilled, and this is not always easy to achieve. For example, Aston Martin, those denizens of luxury car production, a very expensive car. It's individually produced for the needs of each customer. Customer can get in there, tell Aston Martin exactly what they're after, what sort of specifications. Aston Martin will build one car especially for them. Each engine is hand-built and carries a plate with the engineer's name on it. Batch production. The second type of production method which is commonly used and we need to be familiar with. Batch production makes products in separate groups and the product in each batch go through the whole production process together. The production process involves a number of distinct stages, and the defining feature of batch production, and this is key, the defining feature of batch production is that every unit in the batch must go through an individual production stage before the batch as a whole moves on to the next stage. It's best to think of this in terms of an example, I think. So a good example of this form of production is a baker making batches of rolls. Firstly, the dough is mixed and kneaded. Then after being left for a time, the dough is separated into individual amounts, the right size for the rolls. After this, the rolls are baked together and they're often left to cool. When they have cooled, they're put on a display in the shop and another batch can be prepared. So here's a key point. Each roll has gone through the process with the other rolls in the batch, and all the rolls have undergone each stage of the batch before going on to the next stage. Now, batch production allows firms to use division of labour in the production process, and it enables economies of scale if the batch is large enough. So if you're brewing enough beer, if you're baking enough bread, it enables economies of scale. It's usually employed for industries where demand is for batches of identical product. For example, such as 500 school uniforms for students at one school. It makes sense to produce those 500 in one go. It also allows each individual batch to be specially matched to the demand, and the design and composition of batches can easily be altered. The drawbacks are that batch production tends to have high levels of work in progress stocks at each stage, and the work may well be boring and demotivating for the workers. If batches are small, the unit costs are likely to remain high, and there is often a need to clean and adjust machinery after each batch has passed through. Batch production can't be confused with flow production. Some firm produces batches of products using a flow production system. Now, for example, a soft drinks firm may bottle a batch of 20,000, for example, cans of orange drink before resetting the line and producing a batch of another drink. This is not, however, batch production. The individual items are free to move through the process without having to wait for others, so it must be flow production. We'll look at the next two together because they're very similar and little to differentiate them. And that is flow and mass production. Now these methods are used when individual products move from stage to stage of the production process as soon as they are ready. They don't have to wait for any other products. Flow production systems are capable of producing large quantities of output in a relatively short time, and so it suits industries where the demand for the product in question is high and consistent. It also suits the production of large numbers of standardized items that only require minimal alterations. And this is why it's often referred to as mass production. So here you can see why we're combining the two. Flow production usually takes place on a production line, hence the use of the term line production as well. So flow, line production are all parts of mass production. A great example would be Coca-Cola production plant. They've got production plants all over the world, and here the product is standardized. One can of Coke is like another can of Coke. It may have different symbols and lettering and characters on them from country to country, different promotions at different time, but the product is standardized within the country, and the can of soft drink is a standard size. The system is flow production because the cans move through the various stages independently. However, the firm can make changes to the contents of the cans and the labeling on them without having to alter the flow production system. They are capable of producing Coke, Sprite and Schweppes soda water on the same production line, and it's essential that the flow production process be very carefully planned so that there are no disruptions in the system. In a perfect system, the production process would be broken down so that all of the stages were of equal duration and producing equal output levels. Flow production has a number of advantages over other types of production. This is key. Labour costs tend to be relatively low. Much of the process is mechanized, automated, and there's little physical handling of the products. Get onto the website, have a look at some of the flow production processes in process, and you'll be surprised at how few people you see contributing. The constant output rate should make the planning of inputs relatively simple, and this can lead to the minimization of input stocks through the use of just-in-time stock control. Quality tends to be consistent and high, and it's easy to check the quality of products at various points throughout the process. The main disadvantage is the initial high setup cost. You're purchasing very, very, very expensive equipment. It's huge, it's really capital intensive. It costs a lot of money to set up. So by definition, capital intensive, high technology production line are going to cost a great deal of money. And if you are one of these poor, unfortunate workers on the production line, no offense to any of you poor, unfortunate workers listening to this, but if you are one of these people on the production line, the work is typically going to be boring, demotivated, because it is just so repetitive. And finally, for you high-level students, you standard-level students can tune out now. Fast forward to the next slide. The cell production, high-level cell production, is where we split flow production into self-contained groups that are responsible for whole work units. It is a form of flow production, but instead of each individual worker performing a single task, the production line is split into several self-contained mini production units known as cells. If you get onto the website and you have a look at the Dr. Martin's video, you'll see clearly what I'm talking about here. Each individual cell produces a complete unit of work, such as a complete washing machine motor, and not just a small part of it. Each cell has a team leader, and below that a single level of hierarchy made up of multi-skilled workers. The performance of each cell is measured against preset targets. These targets will include output levels, quality, and lead times. Cells are responsible for the quality of their own complete units of work, and this links in with the total quality management coming up in operations management, job enrichment, and team working, which we saw in motivation. The cell production system has led to a few things. It's been an important development in the production process. It's led to significant improvements in worker commitment and motivation because there is teamwork and a sense of ownership of the complete unit of work. There's job rotation within the cell, and increased productivity tends to flow on from this. The success of cell production depends on a well-trained and multi-skilled workforce prepared and able to be flexible and accept a more responsible style of working. Welcome back, standard level students. Just something quickly to think about. Production methods. Have a think about these. Which is the most appropriate production method for the following, producing the following products? iPods, wedding cakes, cookies, Navy battleships, and LED TVs. If you said job production for wedding cakes and Navy battleships, you would be dead right. iPods in LED TVs, we would be looking at flow production, large numbers of these, continuous production process. Cookies, perhaps the very nature of cookies gives it away, but yes, batch production. We want to have a look at how these different types of production methods relate to labour and capital intensity. Okay, when we're talking about a greater proportion of labour, and we're talking about in terms of cost of labour, right? So businesses is looking at its cost. If the greater proportion of its production costs are being paid in salary and wages and etc., then we're talking about a labour intensive industry, and just vice versa for capital intensity. So if the greater proportion of the cost of production are being taken up by capital in terms of cost, then the firm is referred to as being capital intensive. Capital intensive, the drive behind being capital intensive is to increase output. We want to get those economies of scale. We want to drive down those average cost of production and increase productivity. Labour intensive, perhaps we're talking about a highly skilled profession, architecture, law firms, dentists, skilled craftsmanship. High-level students, we need to look at combining production methods. It's quite likely that our 4 types of production methods end up being a messy combination of 2 or 3 of these. So businesses are quite likely to combine methods of production. Combining different methods of production allows businesses to gain from the benefits of each method used. We know that Burger King is on a production line, but the customer can get in there and say, no pickles on my burger, please, or I'd like extra cheese with that. So there's a combination of mass production and job production at work there. And beer bottling or soda bottling, we're combining batch with mass production, again, a flow production process. So by combining different methods of production, this allows businesses to gain from the benefits of each method being used. Now, most firms don't just use just one method. It's quite common for many businesses to use all 3 production methods to gain the benefits that they offer. A French restaurant, for example, might have a continuous supply of staple items on the menu, such as frites, but make batches of a dish that can be kept hot for a long time, or even frozen and reheated easily, such as one of their staple main meals. Specialist dishes that have to be cooked at the table, such as flambés, or use job production. Standard Land Rover models are used on a line production system of mass production, and orders for military versions with special features in common will be made together in one batch. One-off orders such as bulletproof, a gold-plated model for an oil prints would be hand-assembled and finished. High-level stuff again here. Implications of changes in production method. So if a firm is thinking of changing from job to mass production, or mass production to cell production, there are going to be definite changes that will affect the business differently by progressing to another production method. changing a production method, we're going to think in terms of the implications for finance, marketing, and the people involved in the business, so human resources. Let's just run through a few examples here. Let's have a look, perhaps moving from job to batch production. The finance, the cost of equipment needed to handle large numbers in each batch, and additional working capital needed to finance high levels of stocks and work in progress. On the human resources side, there's going to be staff demotivation, perhaps. Less emphasis is placed on an individual craft skills. Marketing can no longer promote the product as being customized to each consumer, and may have to promote the benefits of lower prices and consistent quality. What about job or batch to flow production? Now, on the finance side of things, is that cost of capital equipment needed for flow production. Also, any production delays during the changeover period may have an impact on cash flow. On the human resources side, there's a risk of low motivation again and boredom if traditional line production techniques are used. Workers tend to hate the repetitive nature of flow production. On the marketing side, mass production requires mass marketing, so market research will be vital to identify largest market segments. Accurate estimates of future demand to ensure that output matches demand. Promotion and pricing decisions will have to be geared towards a mass marketing approach, not niche marketing. So the orientation of the business might have to change. And we'll just look at one more, batch or flow to cell production. On the finance side of things, cell production often requires expensive computer-assisted modeling methods may be needed to allow cells to switch from one product to another. On the human resources, recruitment of flexible, adaptable staff keen to work in teams, and staff training is going to be needed to achieve the multi-skilling that's required for cell production. On the marketing side, productivity and quality improvement should allow competitive pricing and promotion of the improved quality products. So, which production method to use? We need to get inside senior management head now and think about choosing the appropriate production method to suit the goods and services our firm is producing. So different factors influencing choice here: size of the market, the amount of capital available, availability of other resources, and market demand for products adapted to customer requirements. Size of the market. If the market is very small, such as for designer clothes, then job production is going to be likely to be used, I should say. Flow production is most efficiently adopted when the market for similar or identical products is very large and consistent throughout the year. If mass production is used in this way, then mass marketing methods will have to be adopted to sell the high output levels that can be manufactured. Even in a market for mass-produced items such as cars, there are to be market niches that will allow smaller manufacturers to survive by making one-off products or batches of identical goods before changing the design or style for another model. If the market demands a large number of units, but at different times of the year, for example, textbooks at the start of the academic year, then batch production might be most appropriate. The amount of capital available. A purpose-built flow production line is difficult and expensive to construct. Small firms are unlikely to be able to afford this type of investment and are more likely to use job or batch production. These machines cost significant amounts of money. The availability of other resources. Large-scale flow production often requires the supply of relatively unskilled workers in a large, flat land area. Job production needs skilled craftspeople, If any of these resources are unavailable or very limited in supply, then the production method may have to be adapted to suit available resources, given the market constraint just referred to. Now, the market demand for products adapted to customer requirements. If firms want the cost advantages of high volumes combined with the ability to make slightly different products for different markets, then mass customization would be most appropriate. Technology is giving firms the flexibility to produce a variety of models from using one basic design and production process. Okay, there we have it. The first topic in our Operations Management Unit, Unit 5, done and dusted. 5.1, Production Methods. Check that off your list. I'm Mr. Burton. I hope you learned something today. Very, very, very happy to have you with me today. Go in, check out the resources, ibbusinessandmanagement.com. Lots of videos illustrating different production methods, summary notes where you can download key advantages and disadvantages of each production method. See you next time. 5.2, Cost and Revenue.